Some people lose their family in a car crash, in a hospital room, in a single devastating moment that splits their life into before and after. But there is another kind of loss, the kind that happens slowly, quietly, over years of Sunday dinners where no one asks how you are. The kind where the people who were supposed to protect you become the very reason you learned to disappear. This is a story about that kind of loss. And more importantly, it's about what happens after. His name was Daniel, and for most of his life, he genuinely believed that something was wrong with him. He grew up in a house that looked fine from the outside. 2 cars in the driveway, a yard, family photos on the wall, but inside that house, Daniel learned something that would take him years to unlearn, that love was conditional, that warmth had to be earned, that belonging was something you could lose if you weren't careful enough, quiet enough, perfect enough. His mother had her favorites. His father was emotionally unavailable, not cruel, just absent, in the way that some people are absent even when they're sitting right next to you. His older sister had learned to survive by becoming the golden child, and Daniel had learned to survive by making himself small, by not needing too much, by not taking up too much space. He spent his childhood waiting to feel loved the way he saw other kids get loved. Freely, without conditions, he kept waiting. By the time he was 19, Daniel had moved out of his family's house and into a tiny apartment across the city. He told himself it was about independence. In truth, he just couldn't breathe in that house anymore. He called home every Sunday for 3 months. His mother would answer, talk for 4 minutes about the weather or what his cousin was doing, and then say she had something on the stove. His father never answered at all. His sister stopped returning texts around Christmas. One Sunday, Daniel sat by his phone waiting for it to ring. It didn't, and in that silence, something inside him broke open, not like glass shattering, but like a dam giving way. A slow, quiet flood of something he had been holding back for years. He realized, sitting in that tiny apartment with the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of rain outside, that he had been abandoned, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily over years, in the small ways that no one ever talks about. The unreturned calls, the canceled plans, the birthdays acknowledged with a 2-word text. He was 20 years old and he had never felt more alone in his life. The loneliness that followed was not the kind you see in movies. It wasn't romanticized or poetic. It was practical, everyday grinding. It was eating alone and having no one to call when something good happened. It was watching other people at restaurants with their families and feeling like you were watching a film in a language you had never been taught. He threw himself into work, into routine. He built walls not out of anger, but out of self-protection. The family, the people genetically bound to love you, could walk away that easily. Then what was the point of letting anyone else in? For 2 years, Daniel lived like that. Functional, polite, professionally successful in small ways. Deeply, quietly hollow inside. The change came not in one dramatic moment, but in a series of small ones. The first was a coworker named Priya. Priya was the kind of person who noticed things. She noticed when Daniel skipped lunch. She noticed when he came in on a Monday looking like he hadn't slept. She didn't make a big deal of it. She just quietly slid a cup of coffee onto his desk one morning and said, "You look like you could use this more than I could." That was it. No expectation. No performance. Just a small, genuine act of care. Daniel didn't know what to do with it. He thanked her awkwardly and went back to his work. But something about it stayed with him. Warmth he hadn't asked for, freely given. A few months later, he started volunteering at a community center on Thursday evenings. He had no particular reason for choosing it. He had seen a flyer, and some part of him was tired of going home to silence. That's where he met Marcus. Marcus was 63 years old, a retired schoolteacher who had been volunteering at the center for 11 years. He had a slow way of speaking that made you feel like whatever you were saying was the most important thing in the world. He was the first person in Daniel's adult life who asked him questions and then actually waited for the answers. One evening after their shift, Marcus and Daniel sat outside the center with paper cups of terrible coffee, and Marcus said something that Daniel would carry with him for the rest of his life. He said, "The family you're born into teaches you what love is. But the family you build teaches you what love should be." Daniel didn't respond. He just sat with that sentence and let it settle somewhere deep. Over the next year, Daniel's world quietly expanded. There was Priya, who became a true friend, the kind who showed up, who remembered what you told her 3 weeks ago, who laughed at the right moments and went quiet at the right moments too. There was Marcus, who became something between a mentor and a grandfather figure, whose presence felt like the emotional safety Daniel had spent his whole life looking for. There was a neighbor named Sophia who left a note on his door when she heard him moving furniture at midnight, not complaining but offering to help. There was a small group from the community center who started going for dinner on the last Friday of every month, and somewhere around the 4th or 5th dinner, Daniel realized that he looked forward to it. Actually, genuinely looked forward to something. These people didn't share his blood. They didn't know his childhood. They hadn't been there for the years of quiet hurt. But they showed up, consistently, warmly, without conditions. One evening, Daniel sat in his apartment and tried to remember the last time he had felt truly alone. He realized he couldn't place it. Somewhere in the quiet accumulation of small moments, a cup of coffee, a Thursday evening, a Friday dinner, a note under the door, something had shifted. Not all at once, not dramatically, but permanently. He called his mother once more that year. She talked for 4 minutes about the weather. He listened, said goodbye, and hung up without bitterness. For the first time, he didn't feel the familiar ache of waiting for something that wasn't coming. He had stopped waiting. Not because he had given up on love, but because he had already found it. Here is what Daniel learned that he wants you to know. Family is not a guarantee. Blood does not automatically mean belonging. There are people who will share your DNA and never truly see you. There are people who will meet you at 30 and love you with more consistency and depth than the people who raised you. The abandonment is real. The pain is real. You do not have to minimize it or pretend it didn't happen. But the abandonment is not the end of your story. It is, if you let it be, the beginning of a different kind of life. A life where you choose your people and they choose you back. Building a second family is not about replacing what you lost. It is about understanding that love is not a fixed quantity, assigned at birth and unchangeable. Love is something that moves. It finds new containers. It fills the spaces you clear for it. Today, Daniel hosts dinner at his apartment on the last Friday of every month. Priya always brings dessert. Marcus always arrives early to help set the table. Sophia brings her guitar sometimes, and no one is very good at singing, but they all try anyway. There are new people now too, more faces around the table, more voices, more laughter filling rooms that used to be quiet. And sometimes, in the middle of all of it, Daniel looks around at these people who were strangers not so long ago, and he feels something he didn't have a name for until he was 25 years old. Something his childhood home, for all its photographs and Sunday dinners, never quite managed to give him. He feels like he belongs. Not because he earned it. Not because he made himself small enough. But simply because he opened the door. And the right people walked through. You can too.